Welcome to the Read Down, your weekly progressive political hot take by the Stonewall Democratic Club. I'm Alex Mahajer, and tonight, the right can't fathom that Antifa isn't real. What is going on with Governor Cuomo, and how exactly is President Biden promoting the American Rescue Plan, you might ask? We will take time to read the GOP for filth and discuss all of this and more tonight on the Read Down. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. I'm Alex Mahajer, and welcome to my construction site of a home here in Long Beach, California, also home to Ebony Murphy-Root. How are you, Ebony?
Good evening. I'm doing well. I'm glad you moved to Long Beach and that you're, in the middle of this upward mobility right now. I'm putting a reframing on it. I'm practicing.
Well, thanks for that, because I need it. And also, I'm so happy to be joined by my lovely, delicious co-host, Jonathan Welch.
Delicious. Okay.
It's a word. It's an adjective.
It's a word. I'm glad that you're in a construction zone. I'm glad that we're back into the building. And
Jonathan has been my advisor and confidant throughout the duration of this remodel. And so thank you, Jonathan. But that's neither here nor there. We're here to talk politics. And you know who we're joined by tonight? A very special guest, a dear friend of mine, and the executive director of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party. It's and our Stonewall colleague, Drexel Hurd.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be here. Good to see all of you. And thanks for having me back. I am here at our downtown LA office right now. So
Drexel, did I get your title right?
You did. I always it's sometimes long to say, so I just don't say it sometimes. But for the purposes of this, Stonewall Community Vice President is exactly where I want to keep it. Keep it in the Stonewall family.
Got it. Well, there you go. But what do you want? You're a decorated and accomplished young man, Mr. Hurd. So we're very pleased to have you. And I just found a picture that I sent Drexel from 2015 when we were at Hillary Clinton. We went to Hillary Clinton's event in East LA together, and we were in the LA Times. And I found the picture, and I forgot that it even happened.
Yeah, and that was when we were all getting pelted coming out of the high school at the time.
The gauntlet.
It was a rite of passage of being a Hillary Clinton supporter in 2016.
Right, having very angry, we'll just go ahead and say supporters of an opposing Democratic primary candidate throwing things at us and yelling at us as we walk down. Either way, we're here. Joe Biden is president, and we have an all-new episode of the Read Down for you guys this week. And thank you all for being here. First and foremost, you guys, the View's Joy Behar has taken a little heat. It's not the first time, won't be the last, but she's taking some heat for proclaiming that Antifa isn't a real group, but an ideology. The problem here is that she's right. And how do we impart this onto people? Jonathan.
Yeah. So, obviously this is something that happens all the time where the GOP is trying to scapegoat some group or some person and make them into the enemy, make them into this horrible, horrific monster. So Antifa is the thing that we've been hearing for years, that they are a terror organization, that they're a group, that they're organized. They are not organized. It is the same exact idea as saying that MAGA is a group and organized. It is a school of thought. It is anti-fascism. And if you're against that, then that is a little problematic. So in terms of how do we keep fighting back? You do what Joy Behar did. You say this stuff on network television. You say this stuff on the air, right in their faces, so that they see that, and people out there who don't know either side see, oh, it's not a group. It's not like ISIS. It's not like Al-Qaeda. It's not like a terror organization. And by the way, it's a group of people who just feel that fascism is wrong and fascism is wrong. So to all of our, grandparents and great grandparents who fought in World War II, who were Antifa, what would we say to those people? So I think that just the fact that it's out there, that it's, on The View, that it's aimed towards, I think, Meghan McCain, or people who Meghan McCain says she knows, who believe that Antifa is bad. That's the way that we have to fight this, is just by putting that information out there and saying that it is what it is.
And I think you might even actually be overstating it, Jonathan. It's not. I don't know of anyone that's like, I'm Antifa. If you go to Antifa.org, which you can do, it's just a picture of Donald Trump screaming about Antifa, and the headline says Antifa is not an organization. There's no Antifa president. There's no Antifa steering committee. Like we are all on a Stonewall steering committee here, or executive board. There's no steering committee. Drexel thoughts on this backlash that Joy Behar is getting on Antifa, and the continued use of Antifa as this boogeyman by the right.
Well, I don't know about the backlash that she's getting. I think that it's a little silly, whatever she's getting, because the reality is that the Republicans certainly have a hard time identifying actual terror or domestic terror organizations that are right in front of their faces. So, for them to create one, it kind of reminds me a little bit of when they always say that they have a plan to repeal and replace something, and there's no actual plan. They just kind of make stuff up as they go along, and hopes that nobody is. Republicans, as you all know, and certainly those who are listening, know that they truly believe that their voters are dum-dums, and that's how they treat them. And I don't say that lightly. I say that that is exactly what they know, because they know that they're not going to go look that information up, that actual facts do not matter. So they can just make up an organization that does not exist. So then what they do is, for example, at the Capitol riot, they pretend like the domestic white terrorists that were outside of the Capitol on January 6th were somehow infiltrated by Antifa. You saw those same comments from Ron Johnson, Senator Johnson of Wisconsin, yesterday, where he tried to say that he was more afraid of groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter than the ones on the Capitol riot. So we can't take these folks seriously. And to Jonathan's point, it's a lot of just people constantly saying it, and reminding people that Republicans have a hard time telling the truth.
And before I want to turn to Ebony on this, I want to get your perspective, but to reference what Drexel is talking about, here is that we do have a clip of Senator. Well, first of all, this is the website. If you go to antifa.org, okay. So there's your
and it reminds me of isitchristmas.com. Have you guys ever been there? It's isitchristmas.com, and 364 days they're like, no, and then when it is Christmas, it says yes, and then it plays jingle bells and snow comes down. It's very simple.
Is mercuryinretrograde.com. Yes. Very reliable. Here is Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Drexel referenced this, but I want to get to your guys' take.
White supremacists, they don't really believe that, but they know there's a percentage of those that they're telling that will believe it. That's really the game, right? I mean, there's no way people that you go to work with every day really think that you and I are white supremacists because we believe in conservative values, right?
Well, no, and let's face it, I'm also criticized because I've made the comment that on January 6th, I never felt threatened, because I didn't. And mainly because I knew that even though those thousands of people that were marching to the Capitol were trying to pressure people like me to vote the way they wanted me to vote, I knew those are people that love this country, that truly respect law enforcement, would never do anything to break a law. And so I wasn't concerned. Now, had the tables been turned, and Joe, this got me in trouble. Had the tables been turned and President Trump won the election, and those were tens of thousands of Black Lives Matter and Antifa protesters, I might have been a little concerned.
Wow. Well, it's a big statement, but it's a true statement. We see the recent history.
Well, and let's face it, people didn't board up their storefronts in metropolitan areas in case Joe Biden won. And now you take a look at what's happening in Minneapolis with the trial.
So, Ebony, Black Lives Matter is an organized organization, and I can't help but feel, listening to this and hearing the backlash against Joy Behar about Antifa, that what people really mean is people of color or Black Lives Matter or whatnot.
What are you saying? I mean, one thing that's so great about these new boogeymans, right, BLM and, Antifa, is that it proves that the right really has gotten, the hooks of PC culture have gotten into the right, because they won't just call you the N-word. They've got all these other great things to call you now. So it's great. Oh my gosh, am I Antifa? Is there a Connecticut branch? This is very exciting. Is there a prep school branch? Do we have meetings? This is very exciting to me. The other point, though, is that Joy Behar is such a real one. Okay, because every 4 years there's a recycled new right winger. First it was Elizabeth Hasselbeck, and then it was Rachel from The Real World married to Sean, and they have 17 kids, and now it's been Meghan McCain for a while. But Joy Behar's still there and has been there the whole time. So she pops up. She was at Donald Trump's third wedding. She's really become this pop culture figure. So I'm impressed with Joy. I've got to say. So she's on Fox News today, the Washington Examiner, and every cycle or so, Joy Behar gets to be the right wing boogeyman of the left for a while. So you go, Joy.
Joy is I am the joy of this group. I'm going to go and I'm going to claim it. And also, she's my favorite co-host on The View, because she just says what it is. And she's, but that's neither here nor there.
She's never looked any different. She's been on there, to Ebony's point, she's been on there for 20 plus years. And she always with shaded glasses comes on and she gives it to you.
Yeah.
She's like, we don't have Joan Rivers anymore, but we still have Joy Behar. Yes.
And you're right, Ebony, this boogeymaning of things like Antifa is so hilarious. I think I remember from the Georgia debates between Kelly Loeffler and Reverend Radical Liberal Raphael Warnock. She repeated the word Antifa. I did a supercut of this maybe 100 times. And George Soros, the radical socialist liberal left. It's all these weird boogeyman-y buzzwords. And I can't help but feel that it's actually pretext for this protectionist white nationalist sort of death rattle of people who feel like their supremacy is being threatened. But either way, Antifa, not a real organization. And we want to thank you, Joy Behar, for speaking truth to power. Joe Biden actually also said this during the debates. And I don't remember him getting back. Jonathan, do you remember him getting backlash for this, or Drexel, either of you?
No, I don't remember. I don't remember him saying that. But what was interesting with the Ron Johnson clip, and I hadn't really heard the whole thing except for that little small clip, was that anytime somebody prefaces something with "this is going to get me in trouble," there's a good chance it's probably going to get you in trouble, right? And it not like in the Joe Biden way where he just over talks and he says, "I know I'm going to get in trouble for over talking." Ron Johnson literally knew that what he was going to say was going to be wrong. So then he said it anyway. And it just goes to show you, he said something about these people aren't going after law enforcement. We know that there were some injured and some murdered law enforcement officers throughout that. But he also refused, he talked about his own safety, but refused to talk about the safety of his colleagues. And so that's just a privilege that Ron Johnson certainly carries around with himself. And you can see that, and hopefully the voters of Wisconsin will remember that when he's up for re-election.
And I wonder too, where was he that day? If he says he wasn't afraid, well, were you out in the halls?
He was pulling the panic buttons out of other congressional members' offices.
There you go. Yeah.
I actually have video of Ron Johnson at the Capitol, which I'm going to try to upload in a bit because it's hilarious in contrast. I'm not going to have time to upload this, but the short of it is that Ron Johnson's running for his dear life in the footage that was shown during the House's presentation of the Senate conviction trial. Ron Johnson's running for his dear ever-loving mind, and yet in this interview is so cavalier. John Erickson, our dear friend, West Hollywood City Councilman, Dr. John Erickson. Which honorific do you get now, John? Let us know. Which one is the preeminent honorific? Yes, we will, he says. I'm telling every Wisconsin voter. Ron Johnson is trash, he says. Yes, and that's from a Wisconsinite. And thank you, Wisconsin. Ron Johnson is up for re-election in 2022. John Erickson, leave a comment. Let me know who you're favoring to take that seat on the Democratic side.
Erickson.
John Erickson. He's too recent into his stint as West Hollywood's latest.
Stranger things have happened, though.
Indeed. But I would put nothing past our dear John Erickson. Hi, John. Miss you. New York Governor. Speaking of trouble. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. He's facing calls to resign amidst 2 concurrent scandals, maybe a third, maybe a fourth, in which people are coming forward about their experiences feeling like they were, I want to use the term accurately, either sexually harassed. Sexually harassed would be the appropriate word. Descriptor from women who felt uncomfortable by his very overt behavior, and these allegations are coming out as simultaneously to sort of people who have been in his professional orbits coming forward saying he's a bully, that he's a terror to deal with, and it's all happening at the same time. And here we are, we're having a renewed conversation about whether or not this person should resign as these sexual harassment and misconduct allegations grow. Ebony, what's your take right now on Andrew Cuomo, and what are your thoughts on what he needs to do?
Okay, let me preface this. Sexual harassment is bad, very, very bad. Me too, believe women. Also, though, did we not know that Andrew Cuomo, son of Mario and of the great Cuomo family of the great state of New York, did we not know his leadership style, shall we say? And also, so I'm a woman of a certain age. I had, a 20s period of a decade. And I don't know. I mean, this is just very timely. I don't know if Cuomo's going to pull through on this, okay? I'm just saying I think that he might. He may not run again, but I don't think that he's going to resign. And I don't think anything will stick. Now, make noise if someone did something to you, if someone touched you or made you feel uncomfortable at work, like yell about it, okay? But I just don't think with the timing of all of this that he is going to not be governor anytime soon. That is just my prediction as a woman who has lived for a few decades now. That's what I'll say.
I don't think Andrew Cuomo is going to resign, but Drexel, should he, and is this pressure warranted given the nature of the allegations?
So I'm going to just echo what Ebony said at the top of that. I think it's an unfortunate situation for everybody to be dealing with right now. But the governor is going to make his own decision. I think he has taken the Ralph Northam approach to this. Governor Northam of Virginia, when he got in trouble for some blackface things that were coming out, and while he apologized, he refused to resign. To Ebony's point, I'm just going to pivot to the leadership style. Look, everybody has their own leadership style, and not only in public life, but certainly in private practice or any sort of business. And that's certainly up to HR to deal with those claims as they come along. If somebody is feeling harassed, certainly at work or pressure. In politics, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of things going on. And I think people have to be very mindful of the environment that they're in and whether or not they can handle the political pressures of being a staffer or working for somebody who's abrasive. It takes, everybody knows here, to be a politician, you got to be a narcissist. You got to be egotistical. That doesn't excuse certain behaviors, but there is a level of narcissism that comes with being a chair or a party or an elected official or even a club officer, because at the end of the day, you believe that you are the best to lead, and your leadership style is what people certainly voted to do. I don't think that the governor right now, I think there's too much going on in terms of the pandemic to be trying to change leadership in the middle of this. It's like changing leadership in the middle of a war. And I think that could be very detrimental to New York. To Evan, like Ebony said, I think that means that he probably won't run again. But stranger things have happened, like we just said. And I think the governor is going to probably weather this storm, because if he hasn't resigned in the last couple of days, even with the mounting pressure from Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, who took down what's his name, Senator. Sorry, I'm blanking on what's his name.
Al Franken.
Al Franken, yes, thank you. That is what then the governor's probably not going to resign. And like I said, I would venture to say that has a lot to do with the fact that there's so many different balls in the air right now in terms of how New York needs to recover for that to happen.
Jonathan, your thoughts on this?
So, I'm glad we brought up Gillibrand, because it wasn't Kirsten Gillibrand who brought down Al Franken. It was.
Sorry, I meant to say that in the public, like she's the He's the person people point to. And they say, like, she's the person who brought down Al Franken. But, the behavior of Al Franken back at that time, if we can think back that far, because it felt like it was about 25 years ago, right? But if we can, go back to how we felt, it was this idea that we really need to set an example as Democrats, because we see that the other party just kind of runs buck wild. They do whatever they want. They have absolutely no moral authority, and they have no conscience when they go down a wrong path, and they just continue to double down on all of that behavior. So we have to set a better example. I have complicated feelings about the Franken thing. And I'm sorry you brought it up, Drexel, because I have so many feelings. It's totally fine. Sorry.
Feelings about Al Franken, because I appreciate Al Franken, and I think that particular example may not be something that would end a career, but ultimately he did resign on his own accord. Now we're talking about Andrew Cuomo, who I believe, like Ebony and Drexel, you both believe he's not going to resign, and I agree with you. I am a former New Yorker. I think I might be the only person here who had Andrew Cuomo as his governor for 4 years. Andrew Cuomo's an asshole. That might get me in trouble. A little callback to what Drexel said. He's an asshole. And as an asshole, you don't necessarily listen to what the people around you have to say when it comes to doing the right thing. Now, that said, the majority of state lawmakers in New York, the majority of the New York congressional delegation, are calling for his resignation. Well, what do you think is going to happen when Attorney General Letitia James concludes her probably very quick investigation into all of these allegations of misconduct, as well as allegations that he fudged the numbers on nursing home deaths? I mean, these are two things that can come together that could definitely end his term against his will, because you now have a majority of lawmakers in the state assembly and the New York State Senate who are saying that he should resign. And what happens if he doesn't? An impeachment trial, and they could remove him. And it's very likely that that will happen. And then you'll have Governor Kathy Hochul, who was part of the Cuomo administration. So I think the contingency plan there in terms of everything going on in New York State would actually be in pretty good hands with her. So it remains to be seen. Obviously, I'm not a New Yorker anymore, but I do feel as though he's come to a point where he's lost the confidence of everyone around him. And as a result of that, you should not hold on to power for that reason.
Well, and apparently 50% of New York voters have lost their confidence in him. But here's my take on this is I'm not okay with Andrew Cuomo's behavior. I'm not okay with it. I don't really I don't know if I buy wholly into this idea of well, it's widely known that he behaved that way. It's like boys will be boys. It's like we can't apply that standard in criticizing people like Trump and not to our own. At the same time, I think it's wild that we're the only side that cares about this, and Republicans will allow their leadership to stay in power no matter what. They will look aside to everything, and we are more willing to hold our leaders accountable. I'm not I am not okay with Andrew Cuomo's behavior, or this idea that he's an abusive person, not just to women and in a way that's sexually inappropriate, but generally. If he abuses people and creating a toxic work environment for his staff, I'm not okay with that. And I expect our leaders to behave differently. I love that Joe Biden seems to be a man of real moral certitude, and he seems to be a really respectful person who values empathy. I think that's really important. I don't know, Andrew Cuomo is not going to resign. There's just no way he's going to resign because I think that Andrew Cuomo represents toxic masculinity, and it's something that men don't feel that they need to step down about. Al Franken did. I think Al Franken's a decent guy. I think that and he expressed remorse and showed it through his behavior. And at the end of the day, let's see how the legal cases against Cuomo go. But either way, I'm glad that we're shining a light on this and that he's getting this intense of bite back, because we should be holding our elected officials to a high standard, including in the way they treat others and their staff and women. So it's not his only. I don't want to rag on Andrew Cuomo for the majority of this episode, but he's also in other trouble. He is running to some ethics complaints because his vaccine czar apparently was contacting state legislators to find out whether or not they support him, and he's running into some other problems with the way his administration reported COVID-19 deaths in nursing homes. The right wing has seized on that, and I can't help but feel that some of this criticism is really inflamed by the right, who grabs onto it and attacks as if they care, but have no interest in applying that standard to their own elected officials and media figures. So, all in all,
plenty of them were saying they were Cuomo-sexuals during his press conference, and I think
let it be known, I never used the term, and I've also never used the term "boys will be boys." So for folks who are like, "Oh, I'm always getting in trouble for being such a mean feminist and mean to males," but let me tell you, as a person who was a woman in her 20s for a very long time, you put your hands on me, you will pull back and up, okay? Can I swear on this show? I don't think I've sweared very much, okay? I think the young people use the phrase nowadays, F around and find out, okay? So that's my feeling on this. I'm not okay with grabby handsy behavior. But if you want to be mad at somebody for how they handled COVID-19, then just go with that. Like, don't just throw things at the wall and say, okay, maybe we'll get rid of him for this, or maybe we'll get rid of him for that. Like, if you didn't like his behavior before, then don't like it all the way through. That's how I feel, because I'm like a real feminist, like a real women's studies minor person. So that's how I feel about this.
And New York. And look, I mean, Jonathan, I know, lived in New York. Alex, I know, lived in New York. I lived in New York for a time too, and New York has not been without its gubernatorial issues, right? We were all there for Spitzer and things that came after Eliot Spitzer. We've also watched things that the toxicity of places like Chicago and Chicago politics, and the way that things happen there. We're so used to, and we're all fairly young, we're so used to politicians like Barack Obama and Joe Biden who do it right. And I know that somebody in the chat said that, talked about the standards that we hold. And I know Alex mentioned that too. Those are the standards by which we hold certainly our Democratic leaders, because we've seen it and we've seen it done. And Barack Obama went 8 years without a scandal of his own as well. So we know it can be done. I think that there are a lot of politicians. I don't think that in New York State, if Cuomo had the power that he thought he did, or certainly the stronghold, that we would see as many Democratic leaders come out against him so swiftly. And I think that is certainly going to be the challenge. Now, I don't think that it is these allegations that take Cuomo down. I think, to Jonathan's point, it is what Letitia James comes back with in terms of the pandemic response. Just some underhanded things that I think we have all seen in the media. I don't know. I'm not speculating on that. I'm just reading what we've read. That will ultimately take down an administration. And if somebody else doesn't fall on the sword for fudging those numbers, it certainly will be the governor.
Speaking of gubernatorial problems, this isn't on the outline, but I feel like it's topical. So I want to just touch base on our very own governor here in California, Gavin Newsom, who's facing a recall effort that 2 weeks ago I would have told you was just like baloney, fluffed up effort by the right to take him down. And on the merits, I believe, is baloney and phony and not worthy of our time, but it is apparently gaining steam, so much so that the Democratic Party has now said that they're going to spend money on answering this recall and trying to end this recall. What are your guys' thoughts on this attempt to recall Governor Cuomo? And I'm not even clear, maybe I'm living under a rock, so don't shoot me if I'm ignorant here, but I'm not even clear what exactly the criticism is about Newsom that he needs to. Ebony, please.
I think the criticism is that he's hair and very nice teeth and wears very nice suits. He smells divine, and also he went to that restaurant that one time, which was uppity. Like, I feel like that's all of the criticism under an umbrella. Did I get it all? I think I did.
See, that's the thing. That my estimation of it was he went to a restaurant and now they're trying to take away his governorship.
The irony of Governor Newsom going to French Laundry and being criticized by the same people who wanted us to open up restaurants March 12th of 2020 is kind of sad, and it goes back to that Republican playbook that we talked about at the beginning of the episode, where they don't have anything, so they make up stuff. And look, there's a lot of folks out there who are struggling because of this pandemic. There's a lot of folks out there who have been hit hard. Ebony's a teacher. She knows that, those experiences for those parents, certainly parents who cannot afford laptops for their kids to be able to do virtual schools. Like, that's a lot of stress on a parent who's trying to think about their job and their kid's school at the same time. So there's a lot of people who have feelings about what they personally experienced. But the reality is that this entire recall is being driven by the same anti-vaxxers, the same anti-science, the same anti-immigrant Republicans out there who don't share California's general values. If you remember, John Cox, when he ran in 2018, only got 38% of our vote here in our state. Donald Trump in 2020 only got 34% of California's votes. The cap for Republicans in our state hovers just under 40%. The idea that we are going into this recall with anything other than a blip is only free advertisement for the successes that Governor Newsom has had as we roll out more vaccines, as Los Angeles County just opened up, as we continue to open up across the state, and we're going to continue to get folks back to school over the next few months. And so I think those are the things that people are going to be able to see over the next few months. We're going to waste a lot of taxpayer money. So for the party that believes in fiscal responsibility, they certainly like wasting a lot of our money. As we all know, when Democrats have to come back in and fix their economic problems. So this is nothing new to what Republicans have been doing our entire generation, certainly for the last two Republican presidents, where Democrats have had to come back in and clean up an economic mess. Look, have your problems with Governor Newsom all you want to, but the reality is that Republicans know exactly what they're doing. They have nothing. They will have nothing. They're going to waste our time in November if it gets on the ballot, and they're going to waste their time again when they try to run somebody up against the governor in 2022, because they're going to lose again, because we know they have nothing. And we're not going to run somebody against Governor Newsom. Anybody would be stupid to run against Governor Newsom on the Democratic side. So I'm pretty confident that Governor Newsom is going to survive this wasteful recall, but also that he's going to be reelected next year. And, That's all I got to say about that. But he does, like Ebony said, have great teeth. He's got great hair. Sometimes he reminds me a little bit of Christopher Walken in Batman. If you remember, he had that like slick back hair, and that like cape. Like that's Gavin Newsom.
You know what, Drexel? I'm hilarious, by the way. The Republicans got nothing. They ain't nothing. They ain't shit. I love that. I love that so much. But look, Governor Newsom and California, and if the criticism is of Governor Newsom's handling of the coronavirus pandemic, California's recovery continues to outpace the nation's. We are leading in recovery, 87% decrease in cases here in California compared to 74% nationwide. We are leading the country in vaccine distribution, actually. And so the handling here, there's always going to be some flaws. You know, there's no such thing as the perfect scenario. Of course, there are valid criticisms, but he's doing a fantastic job. And I agree with you, Drexel. It's they ain't got nothing. They ain't gonna have nothing. They ain't shit. Republicans.
But you know what, Alex and Drexel and Ebony, they are going to try.
Sure.
And it is incumbent on us, as Democrats and Democratic organizers and people who do care, that we hop on this and we make sure that they don't get anywhere with this effort, because it's going to turn to an election, which is going to be incredibly wasteful. And then, we need to make sure that fails and then rally around and support him. Like Drexel said, he's done some amazing things, especially given the hand that he has been dealt with a Republican administration that was doing everything they could to thwart any positive efforts from blue state governors.
And I think you got to remember is like Governor Newsom's only been in office for 25 months.
Yeah.
When he started, we had a bunch of wildfires that had to be taken care of. We were in the middle of a presidential campaign that everybody, with our own our own U.S. senator in the mix as well. So a lot of California politics in the middle of that. And then he went into a pandemic that he had to shut down a state with 40 million people. Just to give context, here in LA County, there are 3 million Democrats and there are only 900,000 Republicans. We like to keep it that way. We will continue to grow. All the Democrats in LA County certainly will rally around the governor. I mean, today, I know you said my title at the beginning. I have certainly made my phone calls today. So we are all working, all hands on deck to protect the governor. And we will continue to do that. And so that is where we are. So if folks are listening, go to stoptherepublicanrecall.com. You'll find information there about where to figure out where how to support, and we're going to get this thing done, and we're going to get California back on track. So I do know that.
Amen. And sidebar, Gavin Newsom was mayor of San Francisco when I was just a wee Berkeley student, and was so dreamy and perfect. But that's neither here nor there. He came and spoke on campus, and it was so enamored by him. So that's Governor Cuomo. But in national news, President Biden has signed into law the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package. The American Rescue Act is now law. Some of the key provisions: $1,400 direct payments going out to households already. The people started getting them in their direct deposit over the weekend. Families will get an additional $1,400 per child. Let's see, individuals who earn at least $80,000 a year will get that assistance. Unemployment assistance, $300 a week, $300 a week. In jobless benefits extended through September 6th, $10,200 of that is tax-free for most households. We've got benefits for freelancers, gig workers, independent contractors. We've got the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program. We've got aid to states and municipalities, so important. Nutrition assistance for people suffering from food insecurity. Housing aid for state and local governments to help people in low-income household situations to pay back rent assistance, utility bills, tax credits for families and workers, a child tax credit, which is really inching us towards this broader conversation about universal basic income and its merits, optional paid sick and family leave, education and childcare, health insurance subsidies through April. I believe April 1st, people will begin can start signing up for the Affordable Care Act for a health care plan through their marketplaces with increased subsidies. We will see health insurance premiums go down, hundreds of dollars for some people, money for small businesses, vaccines and testing. I mean, this is a massive, transformational, once in a generation kind of bill in his first 50 days in office, compared to other presidents in the past who have taken 300, 400, 500 days really to get their first piece of major legislation passed. Joe Biden in his first 50 days passed one of the biggest, most landmark pieces of legislation in generations. What are your guys' takes on this? I want to start with you, Ebony.
I've seen so many good memes and quotes. I'm glad that folks are getting money that will help them pay bills for a couple weeks. I mean, $1,400 is a good chunk of money, but it's not that much money. The really great thing are the child tax credits, because that's really going to help families who have kids. And then I've got to shout out, my child-free friends who are like, hi, I don't have kids, but I also contribute a lot to my family. And just because I'm not able to credit or, claim these kids, I give a lot. And so I have to always shout out that, just because you're not a parent doesn't mean that you don't also need more than $1,400. So if anybody, in the legislature wants to look out for us, I'm always glad about that. But I do think I'll be getting the deposit tomorrow. And what's really great about it is it's the AGI, the adjusted gross income. So if you maxed out your HSA, which I very responsibly did last year, and if you deposited some retirement money into your teacher retirement account, which I did, then that gets minused from the max, so you can actually make a little more and still get the maximum credit. So I'm appreciative of all that. I do think it'll help folks get through this really hard time. And we should also look at all the other wonderful benefits that Alex mentioned that aren't just the stimulus deposit that many of us will be getting this week, because I think Biden and his team worked really hard on that, and they're doing a really good job of saying, here's the stimulus payment and everything else. So check out the website for all of that stuff for your particular state, because they're very detailed on what they're giving us as a society.
Yeah, and Jonathan, the president, the first lady, Vice President Harris, and second gentleman Doug Emhoff, Californians, they've embarked on a national tour to promote the benefits of this bill, and to really sell it, because President Biden is on record saying he feels that President Obama didn't do enough to sell the 2009 stimulus, and that he was too modest about it, and that this is really transformational. And so he's embarked to Pennsylvania to discuss these issues. What are your thoughts on this tour?
Yeah, I think it's a necessary step, because like you said, President Obama did not take advantage of that kind of bully pulpit to push all of the positive things that came out of the Recovery Act from 2009. These are things that we really need to push ourselves as well, and I think that for them to go and connect with voters, with people who, because ultimately, this is a political issue too. I mean, this is something that people are going to remember. We have a huge uphill battle next year for the midterms. We have a huge uphill battle to save democracy. So when you're showing that government has the capability to do positive things for people's lives, to actually change their financial situations, to help them in a time of need, and to do it quickly, like you said, 50 days this was done. And this is something that people are going to feel and that people are going to remember. A number of Republican attorneys general are fighting back against the city and state aid portion. I just heard that before we went to air, and I think that is absolutely absurd and definitely going to bite them, because you're talking about, again, jobs. You're talking about the ability to deploy vaccinations and to take care of public health measures and educational measures and all of that. So they don't have a leg to stand on, really. And it's great that we have this team of people on our side who are going out to talk up every single benefit. And, to Ebony's point, I like that she always brings up the childless, because I am also childless. And like we have to be represented as well. But for friends and family who do have children, a lot of them don't even know that they're getting this $300 credit. Like my brother and sister-in-law are working pretty hard. They have a 1.5-year-old, and I said, you guys know that you're getting, starting this summer, you're going to get $300 direct deposited every month. And they had no idea, and they were thrilled. My friends who just had their second baby, same thing. They had no idea. They were ecstatic that finally they're going to get a break, because that's something that hasn't been done. I think that the other side is incredibly scared, because this is a hugely beneficial package, and it's going to change the lives of millions of Americans, a lot of people who didn't necessarily side with us, a lot of people who haven't paid that much attention to politics, who now are going to see that that government has the ability to do good by you, and that's invaluable. So the more we push that, I think the better off we're going to be. So I'm all for it. Give it a full PR tour, get out there, and let's all of us talk to the people in our lives and talk up some of this stuff too, because that needs to be said.
And Drexel, to Jonathan's point, and I want your take on this, the other side is probably pretty scared. Not a single Republican voted to support the legislation. And some are taking credit on social media, touting the benefits of the bill, even though they voted against it, because they know it'll probably be deeply popular once it starts positively affecting people. So what are your thoughts on the impact of this bill in terms of how it addresses income inequality and poverty head on? Will Democrats be wise to make this kind of thing permanent? There's a push to make these kinds of policies permanent and not just as a part of a recovery act. And is the Republican Party running scared about the positive impact that it'll have on people's lives?
So, yes, I think Jonathan's 100% right about Republicans running scared. They are at the same time saying things like that they're out there on Fox News and certainly on their conservative outlets trying to tell people that this is not a COVID bill somehow. I don't know how. I don't know what logic they're using. I can't say that Republicans use a lot of logic when they're out there selling trash. But I think you rattled off everything that was a part of that bill. I know that Kelsey and a couple other folks that were in the chat right now, brought up, how Black farmers were going to be impacted across the country. And I know child poverty got cut in half or eliminated based on this bill. So there's a lot of really great things. I think Jonathan said something that I actually tell candidates, certainly that I speak to, and certainly Democrats that I speak to all the time, is our number one job is to help people. At the end of the day, we get into this business to help people. And if you're not willing to do that, then I don't think this business is for you. And so you might want to reevaluate where you stand on a few things. But I also believe that, today we talked about Joe Biden, or the President Biden, going into Pennsylvania. Vice President Harris has gone to Colorado and Vegas. She is on her tour with the second gentleman. And that's exactly what we need to do. But we also need Democrats out there talking about it. We need to shift the media narrative when they're on the Sunday talk shows. This past Sunday, they spent more time pivoting on a couple of different issues when Democrats wanted to get out there and talk about the bill that they just passed. So it's got to be Democrats all hands on deck in terms of forcing the conversation in the media, and then forcing that conversation when they go back to their constituents to be able to explain to them what is happening in this bill. Because at the end of the day, Republicans know that we have the winning issue on every issue, which is why they are out there right now in 200 bills across the country in 43 states, trying to creating bills to suppress the vote, to help them, because they know that they cannot win. They have also made transgender issues a wedge issue. We are seeing that across the state. So when they don't have anything, they will always go after the most vulnerable. And that is what they're doing right now, because they know that this bill is so popular, because it will help so many people, including Republicans in their states, that they have nothing left. And so what they do is they turn their sights and their hooks on those who can't fight back. And so it's our job to make sure that they can't do that.
And to your point, meanwhile, more than 250 pieces of legislation have been introduced across the country since January in different state legislatures seeking to restrict voting rights for people in response to the 2020 victory of Joe Biden and of this win in the Senate. Really, that is the Republican response here, which I think is just it's tragic. But voting rights groups are putting pressure on Georgia, particularly, which just is passing egregious voting rights attacks. People are trying to fight back. Voting rights groups putting pressure on Georgia-based corporations to wield power against these anti-democratic efforts. And HR 1, which was the first HR 1 voting rights bill, which passed by the House. This bill could mitigate a lot of those anti-election voting rights laws, but will die in the Senate if the filibuster is allowed to continue. And we have Stacey Abrams. We want to play this really quickly. We're running out of time. I want to play Stacey Abrams' thoughts on HR 1.
I want to start with the issue of HR 1. The House has passed this bill. The reality is it's not going to overcome the Senate filibuster. So I guess my question for you is, do you think that Democrats should pare down HR 1, focus it on all things voting rights and voter access? Or is it the focus should be on eliminating the filibuster?
I think the focus should be on protecting our democracy. We know that January 6th was the opening salvo in an attempt to roll us back to Jim Crow era. We are watching 7 times the number of bills permeating across state legislatures than occurred in 2020 during election year. And we know that the U.S. Senate, much like the U.S. House, has the sole responsibility under the Elections Clause of the U.S. Constitution to regulate the time, place, and manner of elections. That is something that we have to accomplish. It would be best if it was done in concert with Republicans, as we have in times past when we had to confront our demons and do better by our people. And my deep hope is that we can get it done. But I would say that an exemption to the filibuster for the purposes of protecting our democracy is not only logical, it is fundamental to who we are.
And, excuse me, had to have a Perrier break. And that clip ended faster than I thought it would. But we're running out of time, so I'll let our queen, Stacey Abrams. Where is that photo? Oh, hell. We will let Stacey Abrams' words speak for herself. It's that time of the episode. If either of you wants to, any of you wants to expound on that, you can during our reads, because right now the library is open, and this is our chance to read someone for filth, to get on our soapbox, to talk about something that's weighing on us, or just to speak from the heart. And I want to start this week with Jonathan Welch. Jonathan, who are you going to read this week?
Well, I want to say that the worst senators come from Kentucky. I also want to come in here because Kelsey said that my sound was a little quiet, so I'm going to try to be louder. The worst senators in our country tend to come from Kentucky. We have Mitch McConnell, who is going all in on saying how terrible it would be if there was some scorched earth policy in the Senate that with Democrats carelessly getting rid of the filibuster. Give me an effing break, man. Like, you are the one who created a scorched earth atmosphere in the United States Senate, and your buddy Rand Paul, who is also just an incredibly racist, stupid doctor who seems to know absolutely nothing about science. He is up next year, and guess who might run against him? Charles Booker. So, you know, for all of you out there who are seeing all of the work that's been done with this 50-person Senate, and as much as we want to get done, please take a look and start paying attention at these Senate races, because they're about to get really, really intense with some really great candidates. And I'm very excited that Booker has announced that he is looking into possibly running against Rand Paul. He's the person who ran in a primary against Amy McGrath. My personal choice would have been Charles Booker if I lived in Kentucky. He's an excellent progressive Black man who served in the state legislature in Kentucky. He knows his community. He's built an incredible ground organization in Kentucky, and I'm just really excited to see people like him run again. So everybody go pay attention to some of these races and start getting involved now.
Pop quiz, and I'll buy a cup of coffee for anyone who answers this right. But who said these words? The senator from Kentucky is now working for Vladimir Putin. Cup of coffee for anyone. Anyone?
It was Elizabeth Warren? Sounds like something she would say.
That did sound like.
It sounded like something she would say, though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pop quiz you on that if it was that obvious. It is actually Senator John McCain from Arizona, our late senator from Arizona, John McCain. So pay attention.
Who was he talking about? Was he talking about
Rand
Mitch
Paul.
McConnell?
Rand Paul. Google it.
Listen up, Megan and Ben.
Google
We
it.
haven't talked about the fact that Meghan McCain's husband is a white supremacist. Maybe next week.
We'll get to that next week. But Ebony, while we're on the topic, who are you reading this week?
Oh, I'm very excited about this. I've been following this story all day. Okay, so J.D. Vance from Hillbilly Elegy fame, which I all told you was a trashy book, and I told you to read White Trash by Nancy Eisenberg, and I told you to read Squeeze by Alyssa Quart, and I told you to read The Two Income Trap by Elizabeth Warren and her daughter, or something by Charles Blower, anything but Hillbilly Elegy. But you all want to read Hillbilly Elegy. So now this guy, J.D. Vance, thinks that he's going to run for Senate in Ohio. And the guy from PayPal, Peter Thiel, who is a libertarian, has given his PAC $10 million. All right. So I told you not to read Hillbilly Elegy, and now look what's happened. So pay attention to this. We cannot let J.D. Vance of Hillbilly Elegy and Yale Law and venture capitalist, whatever, take a Senate seat in Ohio. Everybody pay attention to that. Pay attention. That is my read for the week.
So, Ebony, are you saying that Glenn Close should not get an Oscar for Hillbilly Elegy? Should he lose an eighth time?
Five Glenn Close works that are better. I mean, there were some good moments in it, but we can do White Poverty so much better. Watch Nomadland. That was way better.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ebony, for your read this week. And now for our lovely guest this week, our dear friend Drexel Hurd. Who would you like to read this week?
You know, I don't know. I'm not very good at reading, which is why, every time the read read challenge comes on RuPaul's Drag Race, I'm like so amazed at how quickly people can do that. And I'm so amazed at how all three of you all can just like spit that stuff off. I'm just not I don't know how to do that. I'm not cool enough for that. However, I will say that something I just want to remind people of right now, as we are all winding down this pandemic, is to be safe. Get your vaccine, get your shot. The other piece I want to remind people of is that we have another entire community that is taking a tremendous amount of harassment and hits, and they need our support, and that's our AAPI community, our Asian Pacific Islander community. And that is certainly something that everybody I know is aware of. Maybe people aren't aware of. But there is an entire community out there that is being hit by violence on the streets, in their families, walking their dog, walking their children, in their homes, in their businesses. It's unacceptable. I know here in LA County, we passed a resolution, crying, talking about all the violence that is going after our friends and our colleagues, and so we got to call that shit out when it. Can I say that? We got to call that stuff out when it happens, and make sure that our Asian and Pacific Islander community members and certainly our friends know that they have our support through this, and that they will continue to, as they always have. So if I'm going to read anybody, it's those folks who are who have yet to figure out how to not be Neanderthals, and once again go after a community who is on our front lines, teaching our children, who is preparing food, who is our law enforcement, certainly those in our government. Because at the end of the day, it is an unacceptable thing, and we should handle it and call it out when we see it.
Very, very good. Very, very, very worthy use of your read time. Thank you for that, Drexel. And in a very similar note this week, I'd like to draw attention to this onslaught of anti-trans bills that have been introduced in state legislatures across the country. At least 24 states have introduced just terrible, awful anti-trans bills. This is a record number of anti-trans bills. There's this like almost shocking, sudden influx in these efforts to basically target trans youth, of all things, limit access to gender-affirming healthcare, and even prohibit trans kids from participating in school sports. This kind of legislation is an abhorrent reflection of where we're at, and it is devastating that this hatred has grown, has gotten worse instead of better, and we're having this conversation as in the middle of the Black Lives Matter movement, still being very much so crucial and a very important conversation, and Black trans women being the #1 most endangered minority group in the country. As queer people and as allies, as LGBTQ folks, as a community, we have a unique responsibility to support trans lives and to stand with trans bodies. And it is, I want everyone to be very clued in and paying attention to these overtly hateful and bigoted pieces of law that are being introduced around the country, and it needs to stop. So get in touch with your state legislator, get in touch with your member of Congress, look into ways that you can do your part to fight these kinds of bills. They need to end. And one of those ways would be to join the Stonewall Democratic Club. You can do that at www.stonewalldems.org/join for only $25 a year. You can become a member of this fantastic organization. This has been The Read Down, your weekly progressive political hot take. I'd like to thank my co-hosts, Jonathan Welch and Ebony Murphy-Root, and our very special guest panelists this week, Drexel Hurd. I'd like to thank our stage manager, Peter Denz. Thank you so much, Peter, for all of your hard work. And thank you guys all for joining.
Alex, before you leave, I just want to say happy birthday to you. I know your birthday was this week. So before you go, happy birthday, Alex.
Oh, thank you. This is 36, everybody. But 2 birthdays in a row during the pandemic. So I feel like I'm allowed to still be 34 in my work logic. But we will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, Tuesdays at 6. Thank you guys for joining The Read Down. We'll see you all later. Bye-bye.